What's going on YouTube? Listen up, young elder gang. This is Chief Whitebird at you with another banger. Please make sure you like, subscribe, and share this video, fam. I hope this video get at least 100,000 likes in this video. You will find history definitions, scripture information, and best of all, what we Americans have been deprived of from the beginning. The truth, keep in mind, this content used in this video is intended for entertainment, educational, and informational purposes only. We will give you the total truth as we best understand it today. Be sure to hit that like button, young elder gang, hit that subscribe button if you're new to the channel, hit that bell, and don't forget to check back with us every day for new content. Have you ever felt like something is fundamentally wrong with the world? Like unseen forces are pulling the strings and the system is rigged against you? America was secretly hijacked, turned into a corporate entity, and its people unknowingly converted into assets. The inheritors of an ancient Masonic system control our courts, banking, and postal system, treating us as cargo, not citizens. But two men, Russell J. Gould and David Windmiller, discovered the secret and fought to reclaim America's soul. From birth, we're entered into a system built on deception. Our birth certificates become commercial instruments, turning us into assets for the state. We're tracked, taxed, and treated as property, not people. In court, we're seen as legal fictions, not living beings, just part of a global system that values control over freedom. In this world of complex deception and hidden control, the heroes who emerged were not politicians, generals, or billionaires. They were two ordinary men who possessed an extraordinary understanding of the system's deepest secrets. Russell J. Gould and David Windmiller were the men who saw through the veil. They dedicated their lives to dissecting the intricate web of legal and grammatical fraud that had been used to enslave humanity. They understood that the entire control system, this old Masonic postal empire, was built on a foundation of contracts, and that all contracts were based on one thing: grammar. Russell and David were not just theorists, they were warriors. They took their knowledge and went on the offensive. They learned that the post office was the central point of control for all corporate government structures. Every business, every LLC, every entity filed with the Secretary of State was ultimately paying a fee to the post office for the right to exist. But they discovered a critical weakness. They caught the post office in a state of bankruptcy. According to the fundamental laws of contracts, a bankrupt entity has no capacity to contract. It has no rights. The entire chain of authority was broken. Their most audacious move came in 1999. They knew that the ultimate symbol of a nation's sovereignty and the basis for all its contracts was its flag. The flag of the United States, however, was tied up in the same bankruptcy as the post office. Its legal authority had expired. So, on July 25th, 1999, Russell J. Gould and David Windmiller filed a claim for the title to the flag of the United States of America. They did this under Title IV, Sections 1, 2, and 3 of the U.S. Code. They didn't just claim the flag, they claimed it with something the corporate U.S. government didn't have: a correct, mathematically verifiable grammatical structure. They challenged the entire U.S. government, the Congress, the Senate, the Supreme Court, to produce their own claim to the flag, backed by a correct past syntax grammar sentence structure. They challenged them to produce a valid oath of office written in this correct grammar. They couldn't do it. The government had no lawful claim. On August 12, 1999, the United Nations itself was forced to recognize the claim. They voted that Russell J. Gould and David Windmiller were sovereign individuals who had lawfully and rightfully captured the flag of the United States. They had achieved the impossible. They had won the last flag standing. The secret weapon that changed everything wasn't a bomb or a bribe, it was grammar. Russell and David discovered that language is a mathematical equation, and by mastering its syntax, they exposed the legal system's fraud. With correct grammar, they claimed sovereignty, toppling the old power structure and unlocking the chains of a nation. To understand the system Russell J. Gould and David Windmiller confronted, we must travel back centuries before the United States existed. The origins of this global network lie in the medieval guilds of stonemasons, master craftsmen who built Europe's cathedrals and castles. Their secret knowledge and symbols evolved, shaping a powerful, interconnected system that would influence society for centuries. The old charges were the original rulebook for the Masonic system. Ancient documents that set out the fraternity's laws, obligations, and secret oaths. These oaths bound members to secrecy and loyalty, creating a private network that transcended national borders. Masons pledged allegiance to the craft above all else, forming a hidden system of trust and influence. Outwardly, they appeared loyal to rulers, but their true loyalty was always to the brotherhood. This framework allowed Masons to quietly embed themselves in positions of power, shaping policy and steering nations from behind the scenes. The old charges weren't just guild rules, they were the blueprint for a global system of covert control. As Freemasonry evolved, its focus shifted from building cathedrals to constructing entire nations and economic systems. Masonic architects like Benjamin Banneker, who was a Freemason, helped design the United States, not as a beacon of freedom, but as a carefully managed corporate entity, indebted from its inception. The Constitution itself was a contract, placing America under international financial control. Through legal structures and debt, the Masons ensured the new nation would always serve global banking interests. Real power was won through contracts, not war. The American dream was engineered, a masterpiece of Masonic strategy. To control their global network, the Masonic architects used the postal system, with the King of Great Britain as the ultimate Postmaster General. This role wasn't symbolic. It meant overseeing global commerce, shipping, and legal jurisdiction. British Admiralty law became the backbone of international trade and even domestic courts. The postal system linked all nations, making every transaction subject to the postmaster's rules. Even after revolutions, countries remained tethered to this hidden authority. The King's postal framework quietly commanded the world's commerce and law. The real war isn't fought with armies. It's a battle for control over shipping, commerce, and legal jurisdiction. Private companies and banks compete for dominance, but all play by the same Masonic rules. From birth, you're treated as cargo. Your birth certificate is a commercial document, making you an asset in this system. You exist as a legal fiction, managed and traded by the global elite. This system reduces people to resources, governed by Admiralty law, the law of profit and control. The world is a ship, and you're part of its manifest. The true battleground is the courtroom, a neutral port where commercial disputes are settled. Courts enforce the contracts and rules set by the Postmaster General, ensuring the system always wins. You enter as a debtor, not a creditor, subject to a legal game you never agreed to play. Every nation operates within this Masonic framework, using the same contracts and legal codes. The courts don't serve justice, they serve the global system of control. Contracts are the ammunition, and you are the cargo. From birth, you're docked into this maritime system. Your delivery from your mother's water is the legal pretext. Hospitals act as dry docks, and doctors as harbor masters, recording your arrival as a vessel. The birth certificate is a contract, transferring your legal status to the state. You become a ward of the system, managed as commercial property. This process is precise and deliberate, binding you to a lifetime of legal and financial control. Without realizing it, you've been conscripted into a global system that treats you as cargo from the moment you're born. Your birth certificate isn't just a record of your identity, it's a commercial instrument, a bond used by the government to finance debt, making you human collateral. Your name in all caps? That's the legal fiction, the strawman, traded on global markets. The birth certificate is the key to this system. The birth certificate creates a legal straw man, separating you from your true self. Courts see only this legal fiction, not the living person. We're bound by invisible chains, contracts, debts, and endless regulations. Breaking this illusion is the first step toward reclaiming our freedom. Our legal system rests on three pillars: Admiralty, Maritime, and Civil Law. Admiralty rules the sea and commerce, Maritime governs shipping and your legal identity, and Civil Law handles contracts between corporate fictions. These pillars form a web of control, binding us in commercial obligations. The USPS isn't just about delivering mail. It's a powerful tool of control, rooted in ancient Masonic frameworks and tied to the crown. Its authority shapes legal timelines, court venues, and even the justice system itself, all under the watchful eye of the Postmaster General. That's why mail theft is a serious federal crime, an attack on the sovereignty of the entire system. In 1871, Congress quietly passed the District of Columbia Organic Act, creating a corporate entity called the United States, replacing the original republic. The president became CEO, and Americans became assets of a for-profit corporation, not citizens of a free nation. This act locked the cage, turning America into a corporate plantation for hidden interests. When you enter a modern courtroom, you're not stepping into a place of justice, but a commercial tribunal under Admiralty law. The entire process is a commercial transaction, focused on settling accounts, not truth or morality. Here, you're seen as cargo, an entry on a ledger, not a person with rights. Russell J. Gould and David Windmiller knew they couldn't fight the Masonic postal empire with its own corrupted tools. Their breakthrough came from mathematics and linguistics, a discovery that all language is algebra and grammar its code. With quantum language parse syntax grammar, they forged a weapon of truth, cutting through legal deception and setting the stage for an epic confrontation. Russell and David, armed with quantum grammar, searched for the system's weak point. Their research revealed the post office as the hidden authority behind all corporate structures. Discovering its bankruptcy, they realized the entire system's authority was void. The linchpin of control was about to be pulled. Russell J. Gould and David Windmiller launched a bold lawful claim for the title of the US flag, seizing it from a bankrupt government. Using quantum language Parsi syntax grammar, they copyrighted the flag with new irrefutable terms. The world watched as the gauntlet was thrown down. Russell and David challenged the entire US government to prove their claim to the flag, demanding valid documents and oaths in correct grammar. No one could. Their silence exposed a government with no standing, no authority, and no lawful right to govern. The empire had no clothes. The silence from the US government was deafening, but the rest of the world was watching. The claim filed by Russell and David was a matter of international law and commerce, and it had to be adjudicated in a neutral port. That neutral port was the United Nations. The UN, as the global body overseeing international relations, was forced to address the monumental claim that had been placed on the table. The bankrupt US corporation had failed to counter the claim, and now a decision had to be rendered. On August 12, 1999, a date that should be taught in every history class, the United Nations convened and made its ruling. In a vote that shook the very foundations of the global power structure, the United Nations recognized the legitimacy of the claim. They voted and affirmed that both Russell J. Gould and David Windmiller were independent, sovereign individuals. More importantly, they affirmed that these two men, through their unrebutted claim, had successfully captured the flag of the United States. They were now the lawful bearers and owners of the title to the nation. The last flag standing had been won. The largest and most powerful corporate empire in the world had been legally and peacefully conquered by two men armed with nothing more than grammar. This victory was not just symbolic, it had immediate and catastrophic legal consequences for the old system. By capturing the flag with their correct pro-C syntax grammar, Russell and David became the new landlords, the new authority for the contract known as the United States. They now owned the terms and conditions. The bankrupt US corporation and all its agents were now operating as rogue tenants on property they no longer controlled. They were trespassing. This UN vote was the official international recognition of this new reality. The world's governments were now on notice that there was a new sheriff in town. The implications were staggering. The entire power structure of the planet had been fundamentally altered. The Masonic postal empire, which had ruled from the shadows for centuries, had lost control of its most valuable asset, the United States corporation. Russell and David were no longer just two brilliant researchers. They were now heads of state, sovereigns in their own right, holding the title to a continent. The old system had been built on centuries of deception, but it was dismantled in a matter of weeks by a claim so powerful and so true that it could not be denied. August 12, 1999 was the day the illusion shattered. By seizing the flag, Russell and David triggered a collapse. The president's authority vanished, the postal system breached its own charter, and the entire corporate government lost power. The White House became an empty shell, its leaders mere actors. The head of the snake had been cut off. The capture of the flag and the subsequent collapse of the corporate government's authority had one final, monumental consequence. It rendered the Constitution of the United States of America a worthless document. This may sound shocking, but it is the logical and legal conclusion of the events that transpired. The Constitution, as we have learned, was the founding document of a bankruptcy trust. It was a contract written by the agents of a bankrupt entity, the original colonies, and it created a new bankrupt entity, the United States Corporation. The authority of that contract was tied directly to the sovereignty and standing of the parties who created it. Once the United States Corporation, through its post office, was proven to be bankrupt and lost its title, the flag, the document that created it lost all its power. A contract is only as valid as the parties who sign it. With the original founding fathers long gone, there was no one left with the authority to amend or correct the document to re-up its terms. There was no one who could lawfully renegotiate the contract on behalf of the now defunct corporation. The corporate government could no longer follow the guidelines of the Constitution because the legal entity to which it applied had ceased to have any lawful standing. This meant that the chains of that original fraudulent contract were finally broken. For over 200 years, the American people had been bound by a document written in deceptive grammar, a contract that secretly turned them into debtors and slaves. While they revered it as a charter of freedom, it was in fact the legal instrument of their enslavement. When Russell and David captured the flag, they didn't just defeat the current administration. They invalidated the founding contract of the entire corrupt system. They broke the spell that had held a nation captive since its inception. The bankrupt government agents were now in a terrible bind. They could no longer claim to be operating under a valid constitution, so they were forced to abandon it. They became an entirely rogue entity, operating without any foundational laws or guidelines, held together only by force and deception. The document they had once hidden behind was now useless to them. This act of liberation, of rendering the slave contract null and void, was perhaps the greatest victory of all. It cleared the slate, wiped the board clean, and created the space for a new lawful and just system of governance to be established under the authority of the last flag standing. With the old system decapitated and its founding contract nullified, a power vacuum was created, but this was not a state of chaos. It was a state of clarification. Russell J. Gould and David Windmiller, as the internationally recognized owners of the flag, stepped into that vacuum not as conquerors, but as restorers of law. They were the last flag standing. They now held the one and only lawful and grammatically correct claim to authority over the jurisdiction known as the United States of America. A new authority had emerged on the world stage, one based not on debt, deception and force, but on mathematical certainty and truth. This new authority came with immense responsibility. As the owners of the flag, they established the new terms and conditions for any and all commerce and governance conducted on the land. Any federal contractor, any agency, any corporation that wished to continue operating would now have to comply with the terms of their syntax. They would have to create a now-spaced performance for their contracts, meaning they would have to operate in truth and clarity, using mathematically verifiable language. The age of ambiguity and deception was over. The era of quantum grammar and contractual certainty had begun. This put the remnants of the old Masonic empire in an impossible position. They could either submit to the new lawful authority and operate in the light of day, or they could continue to operate as rogue pirates, an outlaw government with no flag, no constitution, and no legitimacy. They chose the latter, clinging to the illusion of power through media manipulation and the threat of force. But legally, their time was up. They were trespassers on sovereign territory, and every action they took from that point forward was an act of war against the lawful authority and the people of the land. The victory of Russell and David was not just for themselves. It was a victory for every single person who had been unknowingly trapped in the system of servitude. By capturing the flag, they had seized the keys to the entire prison. They had established a beachhead of law and order from which a new system of freedom could be built. The story of their strike against the empire is the story of how the pen, when wielded with a perfect understanding of grammar, is truly mightier than the sword. They had reclaimed America, and in doing so, they had provided a blueprint for the liberation of the entire world. The global control system seems complex, but at its core, it runs on one principle: grammar as a mathematical equation. Russell J. Gould and David Windmiller discovered that language is math. Nouns, verbs, and prepositions are variables and operators. By mastering this, they exposed how corrupted grammar underpins legal and financial power. Their knowledge became the key to dissolving the chains of control. The Masonic system uses a weaponized grammar called pass to turn living people into legal fictions. The US Constitution was written in this style, building a prison of words. Even words like international hide their true meaning: no land people contract, a fictional jurisdiction. Russell and David exposed this fraud, forcing the system to confront its own deception. To prove the mathematical validity of their claims and expose the fraud of parser grammar, Russell and David utilized a powerful and honestly pretty elegant tool: sentence diagramming. For most people, this is a long-forgotten exercise from elementary school, a confusing web of lines and words on a chalkboard. But in the hands of Gould and Windmiller, it became a forensic instrument, a lie detector for language. Sentence diagramming provides a visual, undeniable representation of a sentence's grammatical structure. It is the blueprint of a thought, showing exactly how all the words relate to one another, leaving no room for interpretation or deception. The process is logical and precise. A horizontal baseline is drawn, and on this line, the core of the sentence, the subject and the verb, are placed. They are separated by a vertical line that crosses the baseline, signifying the division between who is acting and the action being taken. This simple structure is the foundation of all truth in communication. Modifiers, the words that describe and qualify like adjectives and adverbs, are placed on slanted lines below the words they modify. This visually demonstrates their subordinate relationship to the core facts of the sentence. There is no confusion about what modifies what. Prepositional phrases, which are crucial for establishing jurisdiction, are also placed on slanted lines, with the object of the preposition on a horizontal line connected to it. This clearly shows the location, time, or condition of the sentence's action. Elements that are joined by conjunctions or subordinate clauses that add information are connected with dotted lines, visually representing their specific logical connection. When a sentence is diagrammed, its structure is laid bare. It either stands as a logically sound, mathematically coherent statement, or it collapses into a nonsensical and fraudulent jumble of disconnected parts. There is no middle ground. This is how Russell and David could prove their case without argument. They could take a statute or a claim from the corporate government, diagram it, and visually demonstrate its fraudulence. Conversely, they could construct their own claims, like the one for the flag, diagram them, and show their mathematical and logical perfection. Sentence diagramming was their proof. It was the visual evidence that backed up their quantum grammar. It transformed the subjective art of language into the objective science of mathematics. And in doing so, it created a weapon that the forces of deception could not withstand. Building upon the foundations of mathematical grammar and sentence diagramming, Russell and David developed a full-fledged communication technology. They called it Quantum Language Parse Syntax Grammar, or QLPSG. Now, this is more than just a set of rules. It's a complete system for creating perfectly clear, unambiguous communication, specifically designed for high-stakes contexts like legal and contractual agreements. QLPSG is to normal language what a laser-guided missile is to a thrown rock. It's a technology that operates with such precision that it can create and define reality in a way that's contractually binding and mathematically irrefutable. The core principle of QLPSG is the elimination of all ambiguity. In the fraudulent parse system, words can have multiple meanings, sentence structures can be intentionally confusing, and context can be manipulated. This creates loopholes and plausible deniability, allowing the powerful to escape their obligations and impose their will on the weak. QLPSG closes every loophole. By assigning a single, precise meaning to each term and using a rigid, mathematically sound sentence structure, it ensures that a statement can only mean one thing. A contract written in QLPSG is a closed system, a perfect logical construct, with no entry points for misinterpretation. This technology is inspired by the principles of quantum mechanics. In the quantum world, the act of observation affects the outcome. Similarly, a statement made in QLPSG is not just a description of reality, it's an act of creation. It sets a now-spaced performance, meaning it creates a fact in the present moment that is mathematically locked. When Russell and David filed their claim for the flag using QLPSG, they weren't just arguing that they should own it. They were creating the factual mathematical reality of their ownership in that very moment. The system could not rebut it, because you cannot rebut a mathematical proof. This quantum language is the key to reclaiming sovereignty. When an individual learns to communicate in this precise, factual manner, they cease to be a fiction in the eyes of the law. They become a fact, a sovereign being operating with mathematical certainty. They can issue their own contracts, set their own terms, and make their own declarations with the force of law, because their words are now backed by the universal laws of mathematics. QLPSG is the language of power, the native tongue of sovereignty, and it's the tool that allowed two men to rewrite the code of our reality. Within the technical framework of QLPSG, one grammatical element holds a position of supreme importance, the prepositional phrase. This may seem like a minor detail of grammar, but in the world of law and contracts, prepositional phrases are everything. A prepositional phrase is a simple construction that begins with a preposition, words like in, on, at, by, with, for, of, and ends with a noun or pronoun, which is the object of the preposition. Its function is to provide information about location, time, direction, or relationship. In legal terms, its function is to define jurisdiction. Think about it. Where did an event happen? In the city of Chicago. When did it happen? On the 1st of May. By whose authority was it done? By the order of the court. With what instrument was it paid? With a Federal Reserve note. Each of these phrases establishes a critical piece of the jurisdictional puzzle. The entire Masonic control system is built upon a mountain of prepositional phrases that place you in their commercial world, under their authority, for their benefit, and by their rules. They are the small words that build the walls of the prison. Russell and David understood that to be free, one had to take conscious control of their prepositional phrases. You must stop consenting to be in their jurisdiction and start declaring that you are on the sovereign land. You are not a person of the United States, you are a man on the soil. This is not just playing with words, it's a powerful legal declaration. By carefully and correctly choosing your prepositions, you can remove yourself from their fraudulent commercial jurisdiction and place yourself back on the solid ground of the common law, the law of the land. Every prepositional phrase you utter is a choice of venue. This is why mastering grammar is so critical. A single misplaced preposition can be the difference between freedom and servitude. In the QLPSG system, every prepositional phrase is carefully chosen and diagrammed to show its precise relationship to the rest of the sentence, leaving no doubt about the jurisdiction being claimed. When you state your claim with this level of precision, the fraudulent claims of the corporate state with their vague and ambiguous prepositional phrases, cannot compete. You are stating a clear jurisdictional fact, while they are making a fraudulent jurisdictional assumption. In a battle of grammar, the facts always win. The ultimate demonstration of the power of quantum language parse syntax grammar was the claim for the flag. Russell and David didn't just claim the flag, they filed for copyrights on it using their mathematically perfect grammar. This was a move of pure genius. A copyright is a claim of authorship and ownership over a specific creation. By copyrighting the flag with a new set of terms and conditions written in QLPSG, they effectively became the authors of the new law of the land. They had written a new operating system for the nation, and the flag was the icon for it. This copyrighted syntax became the new master contract for the United States. It meant that any federal contractor, from a president to a postal worker, who wished to operate under the authority of the American flag, would now have to comply with the terms of this new syntax. They would be required to perform their duties and create their own contracts with the same level of mathematical and grammatical correctness. The era of prose fraud and deception was contractually over. To use the flag, you had to speak the truth, mathematically. This created an impossible dilemma for the agents of the old bankrupt corporation. They could not comply with the new terms because their entire system was built on grammatical fraud. To write a grammatically correct contract would be to admit that all their previous contracts were fraudulent. But they could not stop using the flag, as it was the source of their perceived authority in the eyes of the public and the world. They were caught in a contractual trap. They were forced to continue using the flag, thereby tacitly agreeing to the new terms, while simultaneously violating those terms with every fraudulent document they created. This copyright claim is the legal and lawful basis for the new authority. It is a private contract with public implications, binding all who seek to benefit from the symbol of the flag. Russell and David did not need an army to enforce it. The laws of commerce and contract enforce it for them. Every time a government agent acts under the color of that flag, they are violating a copyrighted contractual term, and they are personally liable for that breach. The language of power had been used to set a perfect trap, turning the system's own symbols against it. The war for control is, at its most fundamental level, a war over definitions. Whoever defines the words wins the argument. The Masonic postal empire understood this perfectly. A key part of their control system was their ownership and control of the dictionaries and style manuals that the entire world uses. When they can define a word like person to mean corporation or drive to mean engage in commercial activity, they can write laws that appear to apply to everyone but, in reality, only apply to those engaged in government-regulated commerce. The dictionary is not a neutral guide. It is an instrument of war, a weapon for defining reality. This is why Russell and David understood that capturing the flag was not enough. They had to create their own dictionary, their own style manual, their own set of definitions based on the mathematical certainty of QLPSG. They created a glossary of terms where each word has one and only one specific, non-contradictory meaning. This is the dictionary for the new law of the land. It is the reference guide for all contracts written under the authority of the last flag standing. By creating their own dictionary, they broke the monopoly on meaning held by the old system. The enforcement of the new system revolves around enforcing this new code. The King of Great Britain enforced his global dominion through his style manual and his dictionary, which were used in all the neutral port courts around the world. Now there is a new style manual and a new dictionary in play, backed by a lawful claim to the flag and the irrefutable logic of mathematics. The courts of the old system are now confronted with a higher authority and a more precise language that they cannot legally ignore. They can no longer hide behind the ambiguous definitions of their own corrupted dictionaries. This is the ultimate endgame. It is a complete replacement of the fraudulent operating system with a new one based on truth and clarity. The contracts of the new world are written using the QLPSG style manual and defined by the quantum dictionary. These documents are then enforced in the neutral ports, the courts, where the mathematical superiority of the grammar cannot be denied. It is a quiet, intellectual, and overwhelmingly powerful revolution. The war is a war of language, and by mastering its power, Russell J. Gould and David Windmiller have given the people the ultimate weapon to reclaim not just their country, but their reality itself. The modern prison isn't made of bars, but of paper and legal deception. The birth certificate is the first chain, forged days after birth, turning a living soul into a commercial asset. It's a maritime lien, registering you as a vessel, a product delivered from your mother's water. This document is the entry ticket into a system of servitude, the first link in a lifelong chain. One of the most insidious tricks is the theft of your name. The system owns the all-caps version, your legal name, the strawman. When you answer to it, you become their property. Reclaiming your true name is the first step to freedom. The birth certificate is your title of ownership, the all-caps name your brand, and the social security number, your electronic tracking collar. It links you to your corporate asset, tracking every dollar you earn, every move you make. This number is the key to your life, ensuring you remain a productive asset on the plantation. The social security number, a modern mark of ownership, disguised as a benefit. Your birth certificate isn't just a record, it becomes a bond, bundled and sold on global markets, backed by your future labor and taxes. It's a modern version of the old slave trade, your life's value traded as a financial instrument. You're not just a citizen, you're collateral, and your birth certificate is proof of ownership. When you as an average citizen are forced to go to court, you're stepping onto the enemy's home turf, a place where the rules are designed for you to lose. You're not seen as a sovereign man or woman with constitutional rights. The court, operating under the hidden jurisdiction of admiralty law, sees you only one way, as a debtor. You're there because your strawman, that legal fiction bearing your name, has allegedly violated a corporate bylaw, a statute, and created a commercial liability. The entire purpose of the court proceeding is to compel you, the living surety, to settle that debt. It's a collection agency, not a hall of justice. The moment your all-caps name is called and you identify yourself as that entity, the case is already lost. You've admitted to being the debtor and have consented to the court's commercial jurisdiction. The judge acts not as an impartial arbiter of justice, but as the manager or administrator of the bankruptcy. His role is to balance the books. The prosecutor is there to represent the creditor, the state, and to present the claim against your account. The public defender, if you have one, is there to negotiate the terms of your payment on your behalf. No one in the room is there to represent you, the living soul. This is why the substance of your case often seems irrelevant. You might want to argue about fairness, intent, or your constitutional rights, but the court isn't interested. It's only interested in the contract. Did you have a driver's license? Did you register your vehicle? Did you file your tax forms? By participating in these commercial agreements with the state, you've agreed to be bound by all of their thousands of statutes and codes. The court is simply there to enforce the fine print of the contracts you've already agreed to. Your pleas for justice are meaningless in a commercial transaction. We have been converted from citizens of the Republic into chattel property. In the eyes of the court and its masters at the Federal Reserve, we're not human beings. We're things, items of property, resources to be managed. This is why, the punishments are often financial. Fines, fees, court costs. It's all about extracting wealth from the debtor. Even jail time is a commercial matter. The prison system trades on its inmates, receiving money for each person it houses. You are there as a debtor, a thing to be processed, and the court is the factory floor where the processing happens. The brutal truth? Your legal status makes you a modern serf, property, not a citizen. The system treats you as an asset, managed by a foreign-owned corporation masquerading as government. Escaping this prison requires awakening, understanding your bondage and the language of your captors. For centuries, a hidden Masonic empire ruled through law, banking, and deception, turning people into commercial vessels at birth. But Russell J. Gould and David Windmiller uncovered the truth, mastering a quantum language of law. Their lawful claim for the US flag in 1999 ended the old order and began a new era of sovereignty and freedom. Citizen or chattel? The victory of Russell J. Gould and David Windmiller unlocked the cage, but you must choose. Remain property of a defunct corporation, or claim your sovereignty under the last flag standing. The legal groundwork is laid. The choice is yours. Action or silence will be your answer. To be truly free, we must wield the weapon of grammar. Clear, precise, and truthful communication. Learn quantum language. Pass syntax grammar, and use it to write your own contracts and declare your own laws. With knowledge, simple questions can halt the old system's power. Grammar, once used to enslave, is now our tool for liberation. The last flag standing is a beacon of hope for humanity. It's not just about America, it's a symbol of new sovereignty and truth for all people. The old systems of control are fading. The future is in our hands. Step into the light.